Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I think my voice is clear to every one of you. Okay, so we have discussed about dermatophytic infection, basically tinea infection of the skin, hair, and nails. Today we will be discussing about non-dermatophytic, basically other kind of fungal infections of skin, mostly involving Candida species or any other species, whichever we'll be talking about. And after today's class, I think next week there will be no class. In August we will discuss on regarding your deep mycosis, that is deep fungal infections. Mostly it may involve the integumentary system like skin and hypodermis, your dermis also other systemic involvement associated with fungal infections that we will be discussing in the next month. So basically superficial fungal infections of skin majority are caused by dermatophytes, that is tinea, that is ringworm, what we have talked in the last class. Now today we will be talking about non-dermatophytic. Most importantly, first is the candidiasis. So Candida albicans, all we know is a yeast-like dimorphic fungi. Why it is dimorphic fungi? It exists in both form, that is budding yeast form and fungal hyphae, that is mycelial form. That is more of a your microbiology part. So what happens basically, whenever the fungus is in an unfavorable or unfavorable environment, the fungus will be remaining in the budding yeast form or spore form, that is known as chlamydospores. Now when the fungus is in some good host environment with good nutrition, suppose in a diabetic patient or whatever conditions we will discuss later, so it will start rapidly dividing into fungal hyphae, that is mycelial stage. So these hyphae are not true hyphae, basically pseudo hyphae they are, because they are basically mycelia but looks like hyphae. So these two forms exist in nature in tandem, and also these two forms of infection can cause various skin diseases. First we will start with candidiasis. So candidiasis basically is caused by Candida albicans. So we should remember that Candida albicans is not the only species which is causing candidiasis. Other species which is causing cutaneous candidiasis including Candida glabrata, Candida parapsilosis, Candida albicans and globosa. So these are the few species which usually cause cutaneous candidiasis, but vast majority of them is caused by albicans. And what happens, usually Candida is not a commensal in our body but colonization. So we have to remember what is the difference between commensal and colonization. Commensal is something which is a perfectly in synchronization with our body's flora and fauna. Okay, basically the bacteria is in synchronization or is within synergy of our body. For example, your gut bacteria like lactobacillus, so they usually doesn't cause any harm, and they will not produce any major symptoms, okay, like Bacteroides fragilis and etc. But Candida albicans, usually it colonizes our body whenever there is suppression in the immunity or any other host factors which are favorable to it, like if the blood sugar is high, okay, if moist environment is there, if repeated exposure is there due to close contact with the patient, all these conditions. So factors which are predisposing to Candida infection are obesity. Obviously, if the folds are more, if the patient is obese, then chances of infection will be more. Moisture, working in a humid environment with tight clothes on, maceration. Again, obese persons, there will be repeated friction between the folds leading to maceration. Diabetic, pregnancy, HIV, immunosuppressive drugs, broad spectrum antibiotics. Yes, this is one of the major factors. As we know that yeast suppresses bacteria like Penicillium notatum. It produces penicillin. It suppresses the bacteria. So as bacteria suppresses the production of yeast, like many of the gut bacteria, your very importantly bacteroids and lactobacillus, they helps in suppressing opportunistic yeast infection, and other conditions like excessive menses, and in cases of HIV, in cases of cancer, and prolonged ICU admission. All these conditions, wherever there is compromised of host immunity, there will be candida infection. Now, presentation of the candidiasis. Candidiasis is divided into various forms, that is depending upon the part where it is affecting. Now, most importantly, and day to day we will see the most important clinical presentation of candidiasis as oral candidiasis. So how does it will look like? It will look like, here we can see, it will look like a thick curdy white patch present over the oral mucosa. See, curdy white patch, again some curdy white patches present over the oral mucosa, and it will bleed whenever we are trying to remove it. Okay, so oral candidiasis, the main clinical features is presence of curdy white or whitish patches present over the oral mucosa, tongue, on the tonsillar pharynx, and if they are removed, they will either bleed or will have a rhinomatosis. And usually oral candidiasis is very commonly seen in extremes of the age group, either young neonates or an old age person, because both are immunocompromised due to their prevailing systemic conditions. So oral candidiasis can be divided into various types. The most common variant is the acute pseudomembranous. So why pseudomembranous? Because we know that thick curdy white patch is present, which is giving rise to a appearance of a membrane, but it is not a true membrane, it is a pseudomembrane. So acute pseudomembranous, this acute pseudomembranous can go into chronic pseudomembranous, specifically in which patients, suppose some patient is with severe quadriplegia with facial palsy, so the patient is admitted in ICU or recumbent, always in a inactive stage, so and many drugs are going on. So in those patients, chronic pseudomembranous candidiasis can be seen. Similarly, in an HIV positive patients or patients who are using immunosuppressive for long duration. Then atrophic. Now atrophic is basically nothing but is denture associated. Why it is atrophic? Because usually around the dentures, what is happening, whenever there is candidiasis, constant rubbing and friction is leading to loss of the overlying growth of candida, but it has invaded into the skin, into the stratum corneum, so or invaded into the basically granular layer. So continuous erosion of the mucosa will give rise to acute atrophic, and chronic atrophic usually seen in patients who are taking long-term radiation therapy. If there is radiation induced mucositis, then secondary infection will be there by candida, leading to a chronic atrophic type of candidiasis. Now angular cheilitis per leash is one of the most common variant of candidiasis, seen in which patients? In pediatric age group, your young childs. Per leash is very common, usually seen in childs. And last not the least, chronic hyperplastic variant, usually seen in those cases where there is long standing candidiasis and giving rise to local granulomatous reaction. So pseudomembranous candidiasis is a classical form, and how it will look? It will look like large patches. See, this is a classical example of pseudomembranous, large thick white patches over the oral mucosa. And why you will differentiate it from other type of, suppose white hairy trunk, or in cases of what is called leukoplakia, you will be easily able to remove this plaque. You can wipe it out and you will see either bleeding or erythematous space. So pseudomembranous is most common type of oral candidiasis, and the pseudomembranes are sometimes gives rise to a curdled milk. Curdled milk is nothing but your cheese like appearance, or cottage cheese, that is paneer. So somewhat whitish curdled milk like appearance, and there will be presence of debris like fibrin, deformated epithelium, and local deposits will be there. Now pseudomembranous candidiasis can occur on any part, okay, but mostly it is seen over the tongue and lateral part of the buccal mucosa, okay. So next entity is this was about acute pseudomembranous. Chronic pseudomembranous will be similarly seen in more immunocompromised patients like renal transplant patient who is on long-term immunosuppressive therapy. Now hyperplastic candidiasis is nothing but plaque which does not rub off. Why it is happening? Because of the persistent presence of the candida with a long duration. What happens? The mycelia which has grown has invaded into the sternum spinosum and is strongly adherent to it. So it is difficult to remove this kind of patch, giving rise to chronic hyperplastic candidiasis. And sometimes it is very difficult to differentiate it from oral leukoplakia. Now what happens that if you give a course of antifungals, the disease starts to resolve. So that's how you differentiate it from oral leukoplakia. Now angular cheilitis per leash is the most common variant of one of the most common variant of oral candidiasis, and usually symptoms of will be cracking of the angle of the mouth, redness, fissuring, and swelling. And also angular cheilitis may be associated sometimes with oral candidiasis, and usually it is seen that immunocompromised patients who are having artificial dentures, this kind of issues will be seen. I'll show you in picture. Here you can see how it is happening. See, this patient is have some kind of filling here in the denture, and redness, erythema is there. Some kind of cardioid lesions present over the angle of the mouth. So this is how per leash look like, or angular stomatitis. So angular cheilitis. Now other is denture related stomatitis. This is chronic atrophic. So what happens? Usually there is recurrent inflammation, and usually denture people are wearing, so there is constant friction between denture and the mucosa, and this will lead to denture sore mouth, because what happens, the created friction of ill-fitting dentures will give rise to mucosal erosion, giving rise to secondary fungal invasion, okay, and giving rise to a condition known as chronic atrophic stomatitis. Okay, here we have a picture, I think. Here, see, here the patient is having denture or sometimes fixators. So due to constant rubbing, this infection is happening. Now next condition is median rhomboid glossitis. Median rhomboid glossitis is a elliptical or rhomboidal lesion in central of the tongue. Okay, an area most important characteristic is looks like depapillated. So papilla are lost, and it may be reddened and white. Sometimes it is very confusing that you look like red tongue. It is usually normal. Nearby skin will be white. That is basically due to candida. So usually what happens, denudation of the papilla will give rise to this kind of conditions. So here we can see, here you can see, here it is very clear that fungal infection is there, but in the center of the tongue, see how rhomboidal shape of tongue is denuded, and you see closely the papillas are usually how shiny and without any, here we can see some papillas are there, but here it looks like totally flat and shiny. So this is how we have to differentiate between median rhomboid glossitis, and in this patient you can see that cardioid lesions are there. This is case of acute membranous candidiasis, cardioid lesions, cottage cheese like lesions inside the mouth. Okay, here again in one more child you can see. So cardioid lesions, usually patients who are on breastfeeding or top feeding in a child, so they get this kind of lesions. Oral thrush we call it, very commonly seen in pediatric age group. Now the next, after oral candidiasis, next condition we go is candidal intertrigo. Intertrigo means infection affecting the intertriginous regions, that is folds of the skin. Okay, so most characteristic will be, it will be moist place because of the friction, and some maceration will be there, and dissipation of the infection to the nearby skin, basically due to friction and direct contact will be there. So what happens, there will be soggy, scaly and somewhat oozy lesions. Okay, and usually present wherever it will be seen in patients who are obese. So in obese patients, it will be seen under the skin folds of the abdomen, in the axilla, or under the breast. Okay, armpits, groin, all these areas. See how characteristic. In the first look it looks like a tinea infection, but it is not a tinea infection. You can see the borders here, you can see curdy white, somewhat whitish lesions are there. Relative central clearing is also not there. So this is basically a case of candidiasis. Here we can see. Now here in a child, small child who is wearing napkin, that is your nappy. So you can see it is affecting the napkin area only, because constant contact with the napkin is harboring the fungal infection, and again due to moistening of the part is giving rise to this kind of lesions. Now one important thing, just see the periphery. Here one, here one, here one, here one. These are nothing but satellite lesions. Okay, satellite lesions are away from the primary lesions, basically due to indirect inoculation or distant inoculation. Okay, so satellite lesions are characteristic of candidiasis. Okay, and erythematous velvety appearance, whereas tinea, it will be more of a circumferential lesion with relative central clearing. Scaling will be there. Here scaling is really very less. Again you can see, here you can see in the intertriginous regions. Okay, there will be curdy white lesions and erythema surrounding the lesions. It is contrast to tinea infection, plus tinea will be over the dorsum of the hand. Okay, now next condition is the genital candidiasis. Genital candidiasis can be divided into two types, that is candidal vulvovaginitis, or known as vaginal moniliasis. Very commonly seen and very important question which has been repeatedly asked in your gynecological examinations. So what happens, there will be curdy white adherent plaques present over the cervix. Okay, and whitish curdy white discharge will be there, and whenever you take a smear and plate it, you will be able to see the pseudohyphae, you will be able to see the budding yeast cells. Okay, and vaginal candidiasis is one of the most common cause of non-gonococcal vaginal discharge. Okay, now second is candidal balanitis. So what is the balanitis? Balanitis is infection of the basically shaft of the penis. Okay, so what happens, there will be persistent ulceration, repeatedly ulcerations will be there, erosion, exacerbation of the lesions. Okay, and difficulty during the intercourse will be seen, and diagnosis of the lesion is essentially by Keough mount, that we have already discussed about it. Now most importantly, candidal balanitis or balanoposthitis is usually seen in diabetic patients, because what happens in diabetic patients, due to repeated high blood sugar and autonomic neuropathy and suppression of the immune system due to high glycemic index and superadded secondary infection, bacterial infection give rise to host immunity compromise, giving opportunistic yeast infections a place to harbor. And usually it has been seen that candidal balanitis is sexually contracted, usually from female, because in female we know until and unless it is involving the endocervix, the lesions are usually asymptomatic. So whenever sexual contact, unprotected sexual contact is there, there will high chances of candidal balanitis in the male will be happening if his blood sugars are high. Now next condition is paronychia. Paronychia is infection of the nail fold. So usually acute paranoia is bacterial in origin, but we do see chronic paranoia cases caused by candida infection. Why? The reason is repeated exposure to water. Suppose somebody is a washerman or somebody is a houseman, so she or he is reportedly consistently working in water, so it gives rise to a wet environment with maceration, giving rise to good opportunity to yeast to go there. Secondarily, many people, they will apply steroid creams to some kind of mild inflammation. So after application of steroid creams, what happens, usually symptomatic relief happens in most of the people after few days. So when symptomatic relief happens, people tend to use that cream for longer duration. Now using a steroid cream for longer duration will suppress local immunity and will help in growth of local, what is that, your yeast infection. So this is how the most commonly this yeast infection is transferred into from one person to another. Now what happens, sometimes nail folds are usually involved. Here we can see how nail is badly macerated, nail plate is involved, so there is dystrophic nails are there. Here we can see dystrophic nails are there. There is severe paranoia. Paranoia is nothing but infection of the nail fold. Okay, so paranoia, destruction of the nails. Okay, now predisposing factors we have already discussed about, like poor peripheral circulation, vulvar candidiasis, wet fur, who are working in water. All these are the reasons which is causing chronic candidiasis or candidial nail infection, are known as intertribe. Okay, now few of the conditions which are usually genetically predisposed, that are chronic mucocutaneous candidiasis. Now what happens, it is affecting all of the body along with the mucous membrane, and usually seen in various types, are that is early onset CMC, late onset CMC, okay, maternal hormone induced CMC. So this all can be seen, usually they are seen during infancy, and long-term fluconazole therapy prophylaxis is usually advised in these patients, or they have to change their profession. So chronic mucocutaneous candidiasis is usually associated with pediatric age group. Now various forms are there, autosomal recessive, dominant, and so we are not discussing on various forms of CMC because it's not important for you. Candida, endocrinopathy syndrome, and XYZ. So this was about superficial candidiasis. Now we have to discuss about systemic candidiasis. Systemic candida infection is a day-to-day infection which is seen in ICU setting usually, and usually patients who are on severe immunosuppression, who are terminally ill, ARDS cases, or heart failure cases, or any other conditions where patient is ill, or patient is having severe blood loss with neutropenia. In all these cases, systemic candidiasis happens, and skin lesions are usually firm red nodules rather than scaly lesions. Why? Red nodules will be there because of the candidiaridine reaction basically. Okay, and when biopsy is done, there will be presence of yeast cells and pseudohyphae. So that is how you have to differentiate it with other red colored lesions in severe immunosuppression conditions. Okay. Now investigations of candidiasis, usually what you do, swabs should be taken for culture and sensitivity. Now various methods of culture are there, that is SDA media, okay, flower media, then Brody's Reynolds Brody's method, wherever in a germ tube the candida is cultured, and within 2 to 4 hours it will show yeast like growth. Okay, and urine and examination is very necessarily should be done, and chronic mucocutaneous candidiasis, total immunological profile, preferably a bone marrow biopsy has to be done to find any deficiency in specific cell mediated immunity. Now treatment, regarding treatment, most commonly candidiasis is responds to azole groups terbinafine, but budding yeast does not respond to grisofulvin. So grisofulvin should not be used in treatment of candidiasis, and you have to differentiate between candidiasis and yeast infection. Azole antifungals like ketoconazole, itraconazole, luliconazole, amphotericin B can be used. Okay, and apart from it, systemic topical antifungals like luliconazole, miconazole can also be used. Any other immunosuppressive conditions like steroids, immunosuppressive drugs, or any other conditions has to be removed. Okay, and these are all regarding the treatments. Okay, this is how genital candidiasis responds to a single day of fluconazole. Okay. Now the next disease is pityriasis versicolor. Now name itself speaks, pityriasis means scaling. Here we can see multiple scales present all over the body. Okay, they are in different colors. See, this one is blackish in color. Now what happens is basically caused by Pityrosporum orbiculare yeast form, which converted into fungal form known as Malassezia furfur. Now what happens that carboxylic acid, which is released by the organisms, inhibit the pigment production by melanocytes. Okay, so giving rise to a whitish appearance or altered appearance in skin, giving rise to the name versicolor, because any color it can be present, even as black or even as white. Okay, so pityriasis versicolor is asymptomatic usually, and sometimes itching may be present, and the predisposition part of pityriasis versicolor is presence over the which parts is the your sebum rich areas like chest, back, face. Okay, seldomly it will affect legs and hands. Okay, and presentation, usually there will be fine scaling, and on waking up patient will be getting a horse. Now untreated lesions, they will persist, and they will have deep pigmented areas even after adequate treatment, and the color which is lost will be slow to gain. Okay, and it has been seen that it is notoriously permanent. Even if you treat the condition for almost like 2 months, 3 months, still patient will be still having exacerbation whenever you are going out in any presence of the lesions over the part where it is affecting. Here we can see. Here we can see. Okay. Now differential diagnosis is vitiligo, seborrheic eczema, pityriasis alba, and tinea versicolor. These are the few of the differential diagnosis of P. versicolor. Investigation, skin scraping is enough. Okay. Now treatment, azole antifungals like luliconazole, sertaconazole, miconazole lotion, and other treatment includes ketoconazole 2% shampoo, stay on lotions which can be applied at night and washed in the morning, and also sometimes oral antifungals like itraconazole and fluconazole has to be given. See how itraconazole, and shampoo containing this one. Okay. The next condition is Pietra. Now Pietra is nothing but, it is what? Hello? Hello?
There are 131 participants in the conference. Unmuted.
Okay. So I think you are able to hear my voice. Okay, so continuing with the presentation. Okay, so I think you can hear my voice. Okay, now we will start discuss about Pietra. Pietra, basically it is a Spanish term which means stone. Okay, now Piedra is basically a Spanish term which means stone. Now stone, why it is known as stone? It is basically affecting the shaft of the hair. Okay, and give rise to small gritty small stone like appearance. That's why the condition is known as Pietra. Now Pietra is basically asymptomatic superficial fungal infection, and it is basically affecting the hair shaft, and there are two variants. First is the black Pietra. It is caused by Piedra horte, Piedria horte. Piedria horte is basically fungus which is affecting the shaft of the hair. Second is the white Piedra, which is caused by Trichosporum species, and the most common species are Asahi, Ovoides, Astroides, and Cutania. So these are the few species which is causing the Piedra infection. Now in cases of Piedra, what are the clinical features we will discuss. So black Piedra consists of darkly pigmented, firmly attached nodules. They vary in size, and they are having a gritty hard feeling, and usually it will affect the hair of the scalp. Okay, whereas in cases of white Pietra, it is lightly pigmented. Okay, and it's not a hard and firmly attached, somewhat loosely attached, gelatinous sheath, and have soft structure, and most commonly they will affect the beard, mustache, pubic hair, and axillary hair, and eyelashes. Mostly it is seen in the eyelashes and the axillary hair and the pubic hair. Okay, now second thing is that this infection Piedra usually causes breakage of the hair if it is affecting the scalp hair. Because of the invasiveness of the fungus, it will invade into the fungal in the shaft of the hair, making the hair brittle. Now as such, this condition is asymptomatic and not much treatment is required. And most importantly, some differential diagnosis we have to consider is pediculosis, that is nits of the mites, Tinea capitis again, Monilethrics, okay, Trichobacteroides, Trichomycosis axillaris, and Trichorexis nodosa. These are the few conditions we will discuss later. So mostly you remember that it is somewhat loosely attached small nodule like lesions present over the shaft of the hair, which is asymptomatic in nature. Now Diagnosis usually is done using QH mount, and fungal staining using Parker blue black ink or charcoal black ink stain can be done. Okay, and in cases of black Pietra, pigmented hyphae will be seen. In cases of white Pietra, non-pigmented hyphae will be seen. Now treatment, most importantly the treatment is shaving. So if you shave the hair, the disease is curative, as simple as that. So somebody is having Pietra, simply shaving the underarms and shaving the pubic hair will give rise to elimination of the fungus. But especially in young patients and in females where shaving of the scalp hair is not possible, oral terbinafine along with topical antifungals like imidazoles, like ketoconazole, and your oral antifungals like terbinafine can be used. Sometimes selenium sulfide containing shampoos, I think Selsun shampoo you have heard, can also be used. In cases of pregnancy, other drugs like zinc parathion, amphotericin B lotion, chlorhexidine solution, many antifungals can be used topically for removal of Pietra. Okay. So this was all about your superficial fungal infections which are non-dermatophytic in nature. Now next class, I think in August we will be having the next class. So next class we will be talking about deep fungal infections. If you have any doubts, you can ask, or I will send you the PDF of superficial fungal infection, both dermatophytes and non-dermatophytes. Okay, and after deep mycosis in mid-August we will be having a MCQ based examination for fungal infections on both superficial and deep fungal infections. So any doubts if you have, you can ask.